So how do students figure out what to study? How do they figure out what's best for them? Do I study abroad? Do I stay locally in my country? Or which countries would fit my study goals best? How does a student start figuring out the answers to those questions?
Thanks for tuning in to Global Student Voices. This is part 3 of What's Next with Michelle and Scott, and we're getting into some of the questions that students don't even know to ask. So enjoy this episode, and please share your questions with us so that your question can be a part of the next episode. Now enjoy the show.
Welcome to Global Student Solutions. This is a space built for students navigating their global education journey. We're here so you can ask real questions, figure out what's coming next, and if that describes a position that you're currently in, then you're in the right place. I'll just start off by giving you some sort of a quick reflection. I spent the week going all around my area, visiting some schools, and actually asking students, wanting to know what questions they have about their future and global education. And I was met with complete silence. I was actually so surprised and I started questioning why there was that silence. And I discovered that most students hesitate. They think maybe I have to figure everything out so I can ask the right questions. But what we are creating here at Global Student Voices is an environment where you can come with the questions that you have. They don't have to be perfect as long as it's just a question that you have regarding whatever process you're currently in with your global education journey. We're here to answer that. And what's so amazing is that we have Mr. Martin joining us every single episode of the What's Next series. It's amazing. Why is it amazing? He has about 25 years of experience in international education. He's raised as a third culture child in Tanzania and Kenya, and he's the author of 6 books on global student success. He's helped so many students from Africa, Asia, and the US. And I'm just going to welcome him. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Michelle. It's so nice to be here, and I love these episodes because we get to respond to the real questions that students have. And you're absolutely right. I think so many students and so many parents are nervous to even start the conversation because they don't want to look stupid. And my caution, my encouragement to everyone is you have to start somewhere, and we're not going to judge you on GSV.
Mhm.
Like we get that everyone's starting from their own spot. You can ask whatever questions you want, and if it's something you want to know, then we want to help you find an answer.
Exactly. I think even if it's a simple question like, "Hi, I'm lost. What is a entrance exam?" We're right here to answer that question. So I'll just start off by asking, with all the years of experience that you have, why do you believe that it's so vital for students to start asking questions early or start asking questions even before they're fully ready?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest challenge that every family, every student faces is when to start, right? We don't know what to do, so we don't know when to start. And the answer is now. The fact that you just had a thought about study abroad means you should start asking questions right now. You say, "Oh, I'm in 6th grade, or I'm in grade 8, or whatever." Doesn't matter. You had a thought about it. That's the time you start asking questions, and you start
Mhm.
searching for answers. And the reality is that one of the reasons we do this show is because there's so much information that even finding a place to begin. So if we can just be the place where you start and give you some ideas about how to do research and how to find your answers, that's great. If you want to do everything with us, that's great too. But we're not prescriptive like that, right? We just want to work with people and get you where you're at. I interviewed Lara Pecco, who runs a consulting company that helps people find scholarships. And one of the things that she said, and it's a really good episode, if you haven't listened to that one, you should go back and listen to it. One of the things that she said was that it just breaks her heart when somebody comes and they outline their situation, and she knows that if they had come 6 months sooner, she could have helped them so much better. There were so many opportunities that they missed just by delaying their questions by 6 months. It's always better to ask early and start exploring early than late. Late
Yeah.
means wait, right? Late means wait.
That's very profound. I think even from experience, I've experienced that as well. Because finishing high school, I thought, okay, maybe I have to wait till I'm in my final year so I can start figuring everything out because maybe I'll know what I actually want to study, which university I want to go to. And I was met with so many challenges. I remember finding out so much information, but all at the wrong timeline. So finding out things like, oh, your visa has to be done in a different country, and this is after you've been accepted and everything. So you couldn't plan ahead, you couldn't save ahead. So asking early is definitely something that a global student should do. That just makes the whole process way,
Yes.
way easier. That's exactly what we're here to do. Yes. So, what would you say a student should do if they think that their question is maybe too basic? Or maybe they should already know the answer to the question. Maybe even with our parents as well who have students, what would you advise them to do? And how could they start? How could they interact with us?
Yeah, I think, well, one of the reasons we started doing a podcast is because we wanted to put stuff out there that would start these conversations, right? They're not intended to provide a ton of answers. They're really just provided to think, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So one of the things that I'm very happy to be able to say now is just scroll through our podcast list and just look at titles, click on, watch a few minutes, see what it's about. I think that will help shape people's questions in a way that we couldn't do before we had the podcast because it was just there was just too much, just too random. And now you can start scrolling through and start seeing these what next episodes that you've been doing are
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. Like they're so good at capturing questions, direct questions from students. That's also a really wonderful, simple way to start. And you can just put these on, listen to them when you're driving in the car, while you're studying, whatever, and just start making notes about the things that you want to know more about. And those become your questions.
I wish I knew about Global Student Voices when I was still a student. This is actually very easy. Yes, we have a Google form as well that we would attach in the caption. So it's so quick, so easy. You can attach your question as well, whether it's text or audio. And Mr. Martin would be here to assist in terms of getting the answers that you are searching for. So we decided to spin this new episode. We usually have students bring in their questions and we answer those questions. So, after being met with the silence from the students due to that hesitation of not knowing what to ask or when to ask it, we decided to do an episode and we are here to highlight the blind spots. We're here to highlight the questions we think you should ask, questions that would help make everything much easier. So, the very first question I have here is a lot of students wait for a formal school event, maybe, or something to happen with their school, maybe in terms of guidance with their tertiary education. How would you suggest they take initiative early on their own? So maybe this is a student who is in eighth grade or in ninth grade, and yeah, they're around and they want to figure out what to do, even if their school is not necessarily assisting them.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question because even the schools that do a good job don't always hit the timelines right, right? And they can't.
Hmm.
Like every year, you have new students starting the cycle, right? So, and
Yeah.
you can't do the entire gamut. Like even I work directly with one school, and even if I do something every term with them,
Hmm.
which I do, I can't do all of the subjects every term, right? There's just not enough time. It takes too much energy, and it would be like four students at a time. And so even schools that do a great job are not likely, unless you're a really big school, they're not likely to hit you when you need it. Like that's difficult to do. The whole system, all of education rewards initiative. So if you do nothing else, take initiative. When you are struck with questions, with moments where you're like, what do I need to do? What if I wanted to study abroad? What if I just wanted to have that as an option? Like, how do I start? As
Yeah.
soon as you're having those thoughts, you need to jump on it. If you're a parent and you're listening and you're like, "Oh no." If you are thinking, "Oh, I chose this high school because I wanted them to be an option to study abroad," but we haven't actually taken any action toward what would that look like. Right now is the time. You must do it right now. The best thing, the best scenarios, like, and I had this happen a few weeks ago when I was in Kenya. I had a parent say, we want international study to be among the options for our child. for our student, right? And they're just finishing grade 8. What should we be doing? And I said, that's very simple. Like for grade 8 going into grade 9, your list is quite short. The things you need to do, you need to look at, you know, where you're going to study for secondary school, what courses you're going to take
Mm-hmm.
if you have options. Um, and it's just a very short list for grade 9. If you wait till grade 12, all of the grades, all of everything is on the list. It's a really long list. But if you start grade 9,
Yes.
very short list.
The list is very short. That makes a lot of sense. I think then we'll just move on to the next five questions that I had. So these are just based on knowing what to ask. So the very first question I have here is if a student is staring at a blank page and they have no idea where to start. You've mentioned that they need to ask specific questions and they could use, for example, Global Student Voices, go through our YouTube podcasts or even on Spotify and kind of see the different topics, watch a bit, and be able to specify their questions that way. So I wanted us to break those questions into a few categories. And the first category here is why and what. So, how do students figure out what to study? How do they figure out what's best for them? Do I study abroad? Do I stay locally in my country? Or which countries would fit my study goals best? How does a student start figuring out the answers to those questions?
Fantastic question. And often when and this is goes to the kind of the timing issue, right? Often when people approach me,
Hmm.
they're saying, "I want to study in Germany," and that's great. I can help you find opportunities in Germany, but I don't
Hmm.
always know if they've taken the steps to figure out why did they want to study in Germany. What what is it? You know, people come and say, "I want to do pre med." Great, we can help you find pre med opportunities relatively easily, right?
Yeah.
But why do you want to study pre med? So really, what you want to study is a outcome of who you are and what you're good at,
Hmm.
right? So the better you know yourself and the better you know your strengths, the more likely you are to pick a subject and a field and a destination that fits you best, right? So it's not a right and wrong issue. Like people arrive at destinations in all kinds of different ways. And we want students to thrive no matter where they pick up with us, right? So if you're a sophomore in university and you've just discovered us, that's Michelle's story, then we want to make sure we do everything we can with you to make sure that you flourish in your current setting, right? So that's why we have
Hmm.
internships and why we create opportunities for college students. And we help college students build communities like we're doing at universities in the States and in Denmark and all over. We want students to flourish where they are at that moment.
Hmm.
We're not going to regret what we didn't do. We're just going to say if you're in grade 8, 9 now, then absolutely learn as much about yourself. What's your personality? What are your strengths? There's
Hmm.
a strength finders that helps you determine what you're good at. There are assessments that you can do that help you figure out like what subjects are you really and you pay attention. Like, oh, math is so easy. Maybe I should study science. If math is so easy, maybe you should study math, right? Or English is
Hmm.
so easy. It's not even a challenge. Maybe that's because that's a strength. Like, let's feed into that and let's explore a little bit. What is somebody who's really good at math? What are careers that people who are strong in math do? If you're strong in
Hmm.
other subjects or you just like them, like I just love my social studies class, I love my history class. That's interesting. Let's dig into that a little bit. Why do you love it? Is it because the teacher's really fun? That may be part of it, but you have fun teachers and good instructors in subjects you don't like, so it's not only that, right? So those are the kind of things we want students to be thinking about as they're younger. The more information you have about yourself, the more likely you are to find the right fit.
Mm. That's very true. I'm actually just
That being
thinking
said,
right now.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
go ahead, Michelle. Yeah, go
It
ahead.
just made me think of the article that you just recently wrote, and I wanted to ask if maybe you could share a bit more about that, because I think it comes to play now if a student is able to know what they like, who they are, and then move to a whole different country, and how then do they adapt to that? And I think your article touched a lot on that. So maybe you could also share a bit, so they can get to know a bit more about who you are and what GSS is doing with that regard. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And um, yeah, I mean, we just talked about exploring kind of this code switching. Is that the article you're talking about?
Yes, yes, the
Yeah.
recent one.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, and thanks for reading it because I write a lot of stuff. I don't know if anybody reads anything, but I think it is really interesting, and I wish I had known more about code switching and the amount of energy it was taking for me to transition between cultures. I grew up in Kenya. My parents are American, Tanzania and Kenya, East Africa for sure, and so I have kind of that Bantu Maasai cultural mix that I
Mhm.
was in. Like it just was happening around me. So there were cultural attributes that I was absorbing, whether or not I was paying attention to it. In my case, I was paying attention because my mom was a psychologist. So she was helping me pay attention to it starting very young. But you're absorbing it whether or not you're paying attention to it. And then your schooling, you're
Mhm.
absorbing elements of your schooling, whether or not you pay attention. So if you go to British school, there are elements, cultural elements of that British mindset
Mhm.
and the values that are now you're absorbing whether or not you're paying attention. And then in transition, if you don't know those things, then you just think there's something wrong with you, right? And that's, to me, that's the heartbreak because there's nothing wrong with you. There are things about you that you need to know and that will help you to know those things. It doesn't mean, there's elements of our culture we do get to choose, right? We get to choose our values. But there's some things about us that we've just absorbed and we just need to be aware of that we've absorbed them, and then we can adapt who we are and what comes naturally and all of that. So in the code switching, moving between cultures becomes exhausting. So one of the things that's, if your parents' schooling experience was different than yours, so if you're in a national school, for example, and your parents went to a national school for high school, they just don't know how you're experiencing school, and you think, hey, they went to school, why don't you understand me? Because they did school really differently than you're doing. And then when you get to university, if they didn't go to that same university, and even if they did, they went there 20 years before, right? So it's changed, the culture's changed. And so all of those things, so navigating your experience and then communicating that to the people who are in your support network is a challenge, right?
Mhm.
It can be very exhausting, and moving between cultures can be taxing. It's also really life-giving. Like it's an amazing gift that you're able to do that you don't even know you have sometimes, but it makes you really valuable to society. But it also means that you're just like, it can lead to confusion, it can lead to fatigue, and the worst case scenario can lead to feeling like there's something wrong
Mhm.
with you.
That's very true. I thought that would be something that we could actually relate to because I'm thinking about it. If, for example, me as a young high school grade 8 student, I'm able to already start working on figuring out what I want to do, how I want to do it, and I'm already kind of understanding more of who I am, what I value, and what I'm good at as I'm moving and making that switch.
Pardon the interruption. Thanks for listening to this episode of Global Student Voices. We're glad you're here. We try really hard to provide good content for international school leaders, parents, and students. But to know what you want to hear, we need to hear from you. So please reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear next. Now, back to the show.
Into these different environments, going to university, for example, then it's much easier for me to code switch and take way more from the opportunity. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if the article is actually available for everyone to read if they'd want to check it out.
Well, let's make it available. So you mentioned it, so let's make sure that we attach a link to it on the podcast.
All right, that's amazing. The next set of questions we have now are related to money. I know this is a very big deal. A lot of students love to ask about scholarship options, hidden costs as well. I think there's a lot of hidden costs that families are missing. So maybe if we could touch a bit more on that, what exactly does it mean if a student gets a full ride scholarship, for example? What are some hidden costs that we might miss when we hear that someone has gotten a full ride scholarship, and how best can you prepare for that?
It's really interesting because full ride means a lot of different things to a lot of different schools, and the impact on the student comes with that. So, for example, at one school, and I'm thinking of a particular school. I won't name the school because I don't want to influence that part of the decision. But I know a particular school where full ride is full tuition, covers all all of the tuition costs. It does not cover cost of books. It does not cover housing, and it's in a particular place where cost of living is quite high. And so what
Mm-hmm.
it would cost a student to live in that
Yeah.
area is significantly more than, for example, an East African family would pay for housing for their family. So that's actually going to cost them more in living
Mm-hmm.
expenses to do the study. Now, it's a great opportunity, and it may be something they still want to do. It's just you need to be aware of that and maybe look at some external
Mm-hmm.
scholarships that can help pay for it. Other full rides, and I met with a student actually just a week ago. At his school, full ride is boarding, like his housing is covered. He has a meal plan. So
Mm-hmm.
meals are covered when school's in session. It doesn't cover meals over holidays, but it does cover his meals when school's in session. It doesn't cover his meals in the summer either. So I met him in the summer and he was hungry, right? So we took him to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, and it covers all of his tuition. It covers all of his books. He's actually at a school that's paperless, and so all of his books are online and provided by the class. So it's all included. So his expenses are quite low. Uniquely, he also, at his school, if he gets an academic opportunity, like to travel to a conference, his school actually pays for his transport and the conference. Very unique, very unusual, and not normal, right? That's not something that, I got to go to conferences when I was a student. Sometimes the school would pay a portion of it, and I'd have to find the funding for the rest of it. So it's a variable. The other thing that I think, and this happens a lot, particularly when I talk to
Mm-hmm.
students from Africa, it's very, I won't say exclusive to Africa, but it's very common Africa that parents cover the flight, like they anticipate the flight over in the first year of tuition, but then they think the economy works in a way that the student will be able to pay their tuition, board, and room from their earnings working on campus or working in America. So it's very common for students to find themselves in a difficult
Mm-hmm.
financial position because year two, they can't actually earn. Like if they study in the US, for example, they can only work 20 hours a week legally, and that's if the school provides it, and it's a minimum wage for the school. So they can't actually earn that much money. Even if they work in
Wow.
technology office at the school, it's still a pretty minimal amount. And the cost of living is so high, it gets absorbed very quickly. And they get this paycheck that looks huge, right? They get a
Mm-hmm.
paycheck that's like several
Yeah.
$100 US, each every 2 weeks. And they think, I can't ask my parents for more money. I'm making more money than my parents make. But they also have to spend all of it. It's all absorbed in their expenses. So between medical insurance and, if they get an injury, that even if you're on insurance in the U.S., there's still a cost with that. That was actually one of the big surprises. The student I just met with, he got injured in college. It happens. I don't remember how he was injured, and it wasn't a serious injury, but he just knew that when you got that kind of injury in at home in South Africa, you just go to the clinic and you get treated. Well, when he got to the clinic,
Yeah.
he was told
Mm-hmm.
that visit, just showing up at the clinic, was $175 US. He's on a full tuition, everything's covered. He doesn't have $175. Like, how's he supposed to, right? If he had called an ambulance, like if he had called to be transported to the hospital, which is a very simple procedure in the US, it's 3 digits, 911, and an ambulance comes and takes you. But you get a bill, even with insurance, you get a bill for that ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't pay the whole ambulance trip, which can be thousands of dollars. And you get the bill, even if the insurance will cover it, you still get a bill for thousands of dollars. You have to submit to your insurance. Every culture, every country where you have processes has their own way of doing things, and it comes with surprises. And so when families decide studying abroad is the way to go, and it does open up lots and lots of opportunities, it comes with costs, and you need to
Yeah.
anticipate the cost far greater than you think they're going to be.
That is very, very interesting. I think I learned so many new things in the space of a few minutes. Even the ambulance, that's also a shock to me. I had no idea that there was a bill that would follow. So I think something I'm definitely seeing is that consistent pattern in the fact that there's no one plan or blueprint that covers all the expenses for all the different countries in the university. So it's very specific to the space that you would be occupying or the country that you would be going to and the university that you've chosen. So I think I'm seeing the value as well, more and more of global student voices and what's next, because this is an opportunity for someone to ask those specific questions and get information that can reveal those hidden blind spots, especially in the financial aspect. This is really amazing.
Yeah. And there's blind spots in all aspects. Like I think there's a lot of things, and they're different for each country. So we don't put out a blanket like here's how you do A, B, and C, because each country, each school within that country. I mean, there's over 6,000 universities in the United States that you can get an advanced degree with.
Yeah,
6,000.
that's a lot.
They're all different, right? The same answer doesn't fit all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And 1,000 of those schools are terrible. You shouldn't go there, right? But that means there's 5,000 left that are pretty good. And there's probably 2,000 that are very good and would be considered elite educational opportunities. But it's still 2,000 schools.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just so many. And that's why we know building a community is so important. It's what we're really about at Global Student Solutions. And we have global voices to start telling our stories and sharing the word. But it's really about community. We want to make sure we want as many people in our community as possible so that we can learn from each other and share with each other and
Mm-hmm.
do it in a guided way, because a lot of times we'll just ask a random person who, on Reddit, oh, is anybody going to Harvard? Okay, what's your experience? They tell them how they got into Harvard and they think, okay, if I duplicate that, I get to go to Harvard. Not at all.
Get the same
You're
results.
a different person. If you do exactly what they did, you plagiarized and you don't get to go to college anywhere. Like, that's illegal and very unethical. So don't do that. But
Yeah.
what are the common things? What are the things that you can do that help tell your story, that put you in the best position to
Mm-hmm.
attend an Ivy League school if that's important for you, or get the best education if that's important for you, and what are the opportunities? And it's different every country, every scenario. There's just so
Mm-hmm.
many variables. And that's why having a guide, having a community to work with is so important.
Mm-hmm. That's very valuable. I agree. The community makes everything 10 times easier.
So
And
much better.
I think it is so much better. The next set of questions we have are about language. I know this is a really big deal with the IELTS and Duolingo as well. I think that was a shocker for me as well because my whole life I had grown up speaking English, learning in English, and yet when I would apply to specific universities, they still wanted me to prove that I was a fluent English speaker. I think that's another major thing that students might want to know a bit more about, like what is the purpose of these tests and who exactly would qualify for these tests. So how do they find out how to do that? And I know these tests also have costs as well. That was something I also learned, that you actually have to pay to take the test, which is something that might be a blind spot as well to someone else. So what's your take on
Yeah.
that?
Here, I'm going to even blow your mind, Michelle, because we haven't talked about this before. So this is going to mess you up. You didn't need to take the test. Even though it's a required element at those schools, if you had been working with us, we would have sent a letter on your behalf to the school to request a waiver of a required element. All required elements in college applications are waivable. The college can say, we don't need it from you, right? So when I applied to university, I went to an American international high school, but I applied from a foreign address. So I'm plugged into the computer as a foreign student. There's a piece. Now, softwares are getting better, but universities are slow. So because I come from a foreign address, there are things that are now required of me that go in the checklist. And they are required. They have the little star next to it saying required element, right? But they're not required in the sense that you can't get in without it. You just have to verify it some way. So English is a great example. If you're going to an English speaking university, whether it's in the Czech Republic, Singapore, Dubai, US, whatever, English language at a high level is required to. They just know you're going to have a high level of English to be successful there, right? So that's what it's all about. If you're from a
Oh,
English speaking country like India or Ghana or South Africa or Kenya, just being from that country is probably enough to get a waiver. If you attended a good high school, particularly an international school, if the primary language of learning was English, you do not need to take English verification. That is the proof for your English.
yeah.
So it's easier. A lot of people just are like, oh, it's just easier. Let me just take the test. Let me just pay the $35, $65, whatever. Take a test. I'll do well on it. Of course you will, because you're fluent in English. And then it's just easy. I don't have to communicate with them. That's fine. You can do that. A lot of the students I work with still take TOEFL, still take one of the other language verifications. It's not wrong. It's just that you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to. And so, one of the things I encourage international schools to do is to just include, whenever they send the transcript, include a waiver request. It has to be a request. You have to ask for it to be waived in many cases. In some cases, the schools are appropriate. When I was a director of admissions, I knew a lot of international schools. So when I got an applicant from there, I just automatically, I mean, I literally had a stack of waiver requests on my desk, and I would just send it in with their packet and just tell the tech people, just waive this, waive this, waive this. We don't need those things for this student. But not all schools do that. A lot of times it's a computer that does it, and it's just automatic, and it needs to be manually checked off. So I hope that's helpful.
That is very helpful. I had no idea, and I took so many tests. So now it's like, oh my goodness, I actually had no idea that I shouldn't have or had the option not to take the tests. So I think, yes.
One of the other tests, and I'll just, because this is a really good, I think a lot of people are wondering, like ACT, SAT, these are another
Mm-hmm.
other standard
Yeah.
aptitude tests, or again, they're required. They can't be waived. In the case of SAT, there's sometimes at some universities, there's actually a link between the SAT score. It serves like a key and it opens you up to scholarship opportunities. So if you score it in a particular bracket, you might be eligible for some scholarships that you wouldn't otherwise be eligible for. So,
Mm-hmm.
must you have an SAT in order to get into University X? University X is going to say it's required. That's very common. They can waive it. I encourage students to actually take the SAT anyway because it can open up, it's like that key. It can open up some
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. If it's a major hardship for you to be able to take the test, we can request a waiver. In many cases, the SAT is
Yeah.
available in so many places now, and the cost is, in terms of the scope of the overall expenses of universities and the fact that it can open up an opportunity for scholarship, I recommend people actually take the
Yeah.
SAT, and I recommend they take it at the end of their year 11, so the year before they're actually going to be applying. And I do not recommend taking SAT courses or study sessions.
Yes.
If you've been focusing on your education and you've been trying to learn as you've gone along, the SAT is going to be an adequate
Mm-hmm.
review of your stuff. It's a unique kind of exam, and so taking a
Yeah.
practice test is advisable, and you can do that on Khan Academy. And if there's an area of weakness, Khan Academy's test will advise you, and you can do some study for it on Khan Academy. That's free. And even College Board that does the SAT says that Khan Academy is the best solution. They don't even have their own solution anymore. Khan Academy does it better, so just do Khan Academy. And we no longer offer SAT prep as part of our services because we just send people to Khan Academy. It's free, and it's better
Mm-hmm.
than the paid services. So that's the way to prepare.
That's another valuable resource. We're getting so much information, and I'm seeing there's so many new things that I'm also learning as well. But I think we can probably continue with the rest of the
Sure.
questions on the next episode. So we would be speaking about student visa rules. How exactly do you secure accommodation? Many more questions that kind of help you do a reality check, like, okay, what exactly is missing and what more can I do? So I think the only thing now that we can just wrap up and speak a bit more on is, what is your advice to a student who hears the questions that we just spoke about, the conversation that we had, and maybe they start overthinking everything, and now they start to feel stuck. They don't know where to begin, and there's just so much information that they've received.
Yeah, fantastic. That is the next thing that happens, right? You just get overloaded. You get choice paralysis is what I call it, where you just you almost freeze because you have so many choices. And that's where I think finding a wise person that's on your side, that believes in you, and they can be somebody from your
Yeah.
school, maybe a friend of your parent, somebody that doesn't have an agenda. It's kind of what counselors do. We don't have an agenda, coaches. We're just like, we want the best for you. So come out, find somebody that you can start
Hmm.
talking with. Not necessarily say, I need an answer to this question, but just, here's what I'm thinking about. Is this important? Is this important? If you getting nervous about it, it means that
Hmm.
that's important to you. And you should recognize that. Good, it's important to you. Do something. Take one small step, one small action. The form that Michelle has put together, that'll be attached to the description, simple form. Fill it out, send it in. Easy. We'll either ask your questions on the next episode of Global Student
Yeah.
Voices, or we'll send you a quick response. The WhatsApp number. It's free for everyone in the world. Send a WhatsApp message. We're happy
Hmm.
to answer those
That's true.
questions. I or somebody on my team answers all of them. Doesn't matter what they are. And you voicing the
Yeah.
question may be what propels it onto the what's next episode, which means all the other students who had the question and were too nervous to ask get it answered as well.
Yes, I agree 100%. The clarity doesn't have to come before you've asked the question. It comes as a result of asking the question. Exactly. So, just a reminder that you're not alone. Global Student Voices is here, and we're working on building that community for many students like yourself.
Exactly.
So, you don't have to figure out everything on your own. For example, all you have to do is just click on the Google form link and just type in your question and submit it, and we can answer that question in the next Global Student Voices What's Next series episode. So we're here, and we're here for you to shape every episode with your questions and with your voice and your experiences. Thank you so much for tuning in to Global Student Voices. If you're wondering or you're unsure, overthinking, just send in your question. The space was created for you, and we would want you to start your journey with clarity. So make sure to remember to click the link and just fill in your question. Thank you for tuning in.
I'm so grateful you stayed till the end. This was a great episode, and I hope it was really helpful to you. Again, we'd love to hear your feedback, but we also wanted to make you aware of some of the other ways that you can connect with Global Student Solutions. Global Student Voices is a service of Global Student Solutions. We also provide books and resources like you see behind me, as well as a variety of other services, educational content, and consulting. So we would love to connect with you. And at the very least, if you can follow us and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We also have a membership program coming up, and we'd like you to be the first member. So let us know, get your name on the list, and we'll make sure that you're the first to join the membership community. Thank you, and have a great day.